If Cricket was in here, she ate Mammy. Um, but seriously, it's time to just enjoy life, because the things of life, really, the things of earth doesn't matter. It's what you put your trust in God and take care of your family and love each other, because that's what it all comes down to. Now, when you go back to what Jesus said here over in chapter 16, he's talking and he said, it's just like a woman when she has a child. I ain't never had a baby. I was there when Paula had Cassie, and she was having a C-section, so she didn't feel no pain, except when she got over it, because she had 72 staples around her belly. But it's painful. But once that's done, you forget about that pain, right, sisters? Am I right? You forget about that pain. They might be pains later in life, but you really forget about the pain of childbirth. And that's kind of the way it is with God. Jesus was trying to tell them there's going to be pain in life. You're going to have pain right now because I'm going to die. And Paul didn't even know what I was preaching on tonight, and he used that thing about grace and about Peter. But, you know, you get to a place where you realize, Jesus said, but after that you're going to have a joy that's going to remain. It's a state of being. Notice what Jesus said over in Matthew chapter 5 when he gave the Beatitudes. Blessed is the pure in heart. Right? Blessed are you when you're persecuted. Notice what David wrote. Blessed is the man of God that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. That's a state of being. We sing the song, I am blessed. I am blessed. Every day that I live, I am blessed. It's a state. That means when you go through the worst trial of your life, your wife can be laying there dying. You can be in the hospital. They can tell you you have cancer. Everything can be going wrong. But you're still blessed because you still got God. That's why Job said, though skin worms devour my body, yet will I see God. I brought nothing into this world, and I can't take anything out with me. You know what? It doesn't matter. As long as I got this right. Now, I was sitting in the car yesterday, and you can tell Cricket I told this on myself. We switched cars with Bub yesterday, and I was concerned about some things, and she looked at me and she said, Dad, what's the matter? She said, you're all stressed out. I see it on your face. And I said, I'm just thinking, baby, just thinking. She said, Brother Woolham used to say, notify your face. I said, I'm not upset. I'm just thinking about stuff. She said, well, notify your face you ain't upset. And I went, okay. Out of the mouth of babes, right? Even Cricket can get a bright idea every once in a while. She'll watch this when she goes home tonight, and I'll be in trouble. If I come in bruised Sunday morning, you're going to know why. But it's true. I've noticed something. I tell Wayne this all the time. I said, I'm more sensitive now. When I come into church, I notice your attitudes. I never had time to pay attention. I was running after kids and trying to take care of Paula and trying to stay awake while Wayne preaches. I haven't fell asleep once, almost, but I haven't fell asleep once since I've been back. Mom even fell asleep at Newport the other day, but I didn't. I'm getting more rest, and I'm a little more joyful, and I'm praying more, and I'm seeking God more. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. You want to know how to have joy? Seek God. Because he said right here, he said, you've never even asked nothing in my name. He said, now you don't even have to. Just ask. Ask the Father. And he'll give it to you if you come to him in my name with the right attitude. Folks, I love you. And I guess this is the pastor coming out of me. But the way I've seen some of you all in church, and I'm as guilty as anybody else because I have my bad days too. I wouldn't want to come back. And I know how it is. Believe me, I had 9 kids. And I still have my days where I'm upset. And I've been up all night crying. People don't know. You know, I've lost my wife. I got a little girl that cries half the time. I got all the cares of life. I haven't even heard from my boys in 4 days, and the mom's avoiding me. And so I'm concerned about them, but I'm still preaching tonight. And I told the devil, I said, you can do what you want to do. I know my kids are protected because the Lord's watching over them. And I said, if worse comes to worse, I got a good judge that likes me, and I can get them back before I see anything happen. So I said, devil, you're not going to hinder me tonight. But you see, when you really live joyfully, when you love God, it's that state. Paul said in Philippians, whatever state I'm in, I'm content. I've learned something. Y'all were in my house in West Virginia. I was blessed. We were very blessed. I'm going to say this. Paula lived out her dream. We had a wonderful home. Beautiful. I lived right on the river. I had plenty of property. It was gorgeous. I'm living back with my mom. Doesn't bother me. I left home to go pastor a church. I lived in a second-floor apartment that the people next door found rats in their apartment, and I had one little room because I lived with another family. I was happy as a lark. It doesn't matter to me. Things don't matter. My mom and dad raised me better than that. I don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. I don't worry about having the new cell phone. I got one that's cracked because it was Paula's, and I cracked it after Paula died, and I thought, I ain't going to pay $200 for another cell phone. I didn't even want this one, but I have to have it now. I don't worry about that stuff. Material stuff doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is my soul and ministering to people. Because you see, that's how I met Paula. Being in prayer, praying for open doors to witness to people. And out of it, that's how I met her. I pray for those opportunities, not that I get married and have 9 more kids, but that I can lead people to the Lord. And let me tell you something. That's why we're doing these foundational classes. Because if you can't lead anybody to God, you better sit down and check your salvation and find out what's going on with your relationship. Because you can get comfortable and get rocked to sleep right on the pew, because it almost happened to me. Because the cares of life, even Jesus said it when he told the parable of the sower. He said, some of it falls upon the rock and comes up, but the thorns and the thistles, which he said represented the cares of life, will come and rob the joy. Don't believe me? Look it up. It's Luke chapter 8. It will rob your joy. And if it robs your joy when you wake up on Sunday morning, you just roll over in the bed because you say, my back hurts and I don't feel like going to go hear Wayne preach for an hour. I don't have to go to Sunday school today because I read the Bible last night. I done read the Sunday school lesson, so I'm just going to stay home and I'll come in at 11. That's Pastor. You can get on me later. But it is. I pastored for a long time, so that's going to come out of me too. I've been doing a lot of praying, folks. It's not time to play games. Jesus is coming soon. I don't know how soon. I'm 40 years old, and I may only have 40 left, and he might come before tomorrow night. We have no idea. But let me tell you something. I heard one preacher say one time, one little girl in Sunday school asked the teacher, he said, preacher, he was a preacher, said, what would you do if you know Jesus was coming in 24 hours? He said, I'd be knocking on every door, running down the streets, telling people. She said, how do you know he's not? And see, we go around and we worry about ourselves when we don't see eyes of soul. I heard Wayne preach years ago. I don't forget anything hardly. In the basement of Rosie's church, he quoted from Moody. And Moody said that when he looked at people, he saw souls. I look at people, I see souls. You know what the Bible says? He that sows in tears. And there are times, folks, that you're going to go through hard times and you're going to sow in tears and you're going to cry your night, but weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. He said, they that sow in tears shall reap in joys. He that goeth forth bearing precious seed shall doubtless come again, bringing his sheaves with him. Yeah, there's going to be nights you're going to cry for your kids. There's going to be nights you're going to cry for people in church. But you know what? If you hang on, if you hold on, just like tonight, I seen my boy come down the aisle with God all over him. Let me tell you something. You hold fast. Don't give up. Don't give in. Don't stop. Hold on. Watch what God will do. And don't get down in the dumps. Because he said over in the last verse that I had on the screen, my joy, it's not a joy the world can give you. These things have I spoken, that my joy might remain. It's not Jerome's joy. When Jerome had that baby girl, he was happy. When Jerome actually got a girlfriend, he was happy. I'm teasing Jerome. I don't know how happy Misty was. No, I'm joking. But it's true. But that's not the joy. I was so happy when they put Cassie in my arms and I got to hold her before Paula did, and she was so jealous because she was strapped down. I can't explain it. I can't explain that moment. But I can tell you I had joy. Wayne, I guarantee you, when you held that little baby boy, Wayne, never thinking he'd be bigger than both of us. You can't explain that joy. When you had Brenda, when you had little Norm, when you had your children. And that's a great joy. And that's not really an emotional joy. That's a cause joy that really lasts with you. I don't know what it is to really have grandkids, but those of you with grandkids, it's joyful, ain't it, Maxine? We took care of my nephew. He was at my house more than he was home. His name was Wyatt. Paula tried to adopt him, steal him, and do everything else. You know how Paula is with babies. And that little boy would come around, and even though Steve would just hold that kid and just seem happy for a few minutes because it was a joy. But that's not what he's talking about. Oh, and you can come around the altar just like we did tonight, and we can feel the power of God. But that's not the joy he's talking about either, because that's an emotional experience. But it's when you're at home and everything's going wrong. It's when the doctor calls and gives you bad news. It's when the bottom falls out. It's when you're going through trying to get a church started, and every time you turn around, they block you. But you still got to go preach. And you still got to lift up the congregation. I know, I've been there. And so the church don't know that you get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go to prayer, because you're dealing with all your issues too. And you got to get that joy stirred up. And you got to get the old man crucified. And I'm getting ready to close. Now, one more thing. No, 2 more. First of all, over in Philippians, that's where Paul was talking about be content. And that whole book, it's only 4 chapters. Go home and read it. I read epistles at one setting if I have the time. Most of them is 4 to 6 chapters. If you sit down and read them at once, you'll glean a lot. You may not understand everything, but it's a letter. Most of them short, and if you want to read the Bible, that's a good way to get started. Matter of fact, Philemon's 1 chapter. You know, the book of 1 John and 2 John and 3 John are really short. You want to get in the Word of God? You can do it, and you'll feel a sense of accomplishment. I read a whole book of the Bible. It don't matter that it's only 15 verses. You know, because by the time you get to Leviticus and Chronicles, you don't want to read all them names and stuff anyway. Although I have preached 2 sermons out of the chronological, and that's 26 years of preaching. But he says at the beginning of that chapter, he says, brethren, you are my joy